Can you tell me
Sure.
what compelled you to ride your bike across America and why, and what that journey was like?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that'd be a good switch. So I don't know like how many like hardcore things you've maybe done like that, but like for me, I was at Stanford. I was like running the pain service. It was like 24/7 for 14 days. I fielded all these calls at night. And I was burnt out. And I just said one day, like, I really think I need to do this to like in some ways just rebalance my spiritual portfolio. Like I was burnt out. I'd just gone hardcore ever since college, just going right through med school and everything. And so I knew some people that did it, but I decided on it in like about 3 hours. And um, I just said this is the right thing for me. And so my wife helped me plot a bike trip. And I went from Anacortes, Washington to Yorktown, Virginia. And it took me about 46 days. My
And,
wife was going to go with me, but then she got scared and quit because we were biking in San Francisco. And she was like, someone's going to kill me.
and wait a minute, were you an avid cyclist, or was this like, I ride a bike sometimes, I'm just gonna go 2,200 miles across the nation?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was more of option B. Like I never had done an overnight trip. And I was like, yeah, like, 3,000 miles, like, yeah, I can do that. And so it was a character building experience. I learned a lot. I had a lot of like revelations. You and me both are in Go Abundance. Like I started researching Go Abundance. It's when I was at Stanford, even though my net worth was like, negative like $80,000. I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to make this work. And so I just said, I need time to figure myself out and like, not really like rebrand myself, but just become the person I wanted to be. Like, I mean, you're alone for 8-10 hours a day on a bike doing monotonous stuff. And I think that's the problem with like cell phones and all these like attention distracting digital pacifiers is that once you stop the music and you don't have reception and you don't have things to distract you, like things come out, like, things in your basement that maybe you put away in your psychological basement, that is, things that you don't think about. And that's why I think everybody needs time. You don't have to bike across the country, but to go to a place without electronics and distractions and like, what ideas do you have? What do you think about? What type of person are you? And like, what type of person do you want to become?
You know, my head always goes to the checklist, like the logistical, the strategy. And
Yeah.
I love everything you just said about the psychology and the break from technology. But I immediately go to the logistics for somebody that wasn't an
Yeah.
avid rider and had never even done an overnight trip. Like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
How do you even figure out like, A, my legs can take it. B, what do I put on the bike? C, like, is somebody following me in a van? Like tactically, what did that even look like setting that up?
Yeah. So it took about 3 weeks of me just researching and being a good consumer. I bought the bags and the bike. I bought the last bike in San Francisco of Specialized AWOL. They don't make them anymore. And it was like supposed to be this really good bike for across the country. I talked to people. I realized how surprisingly easy it is. It's not as much as you think. Like all I carried was like a sleeping bag, a tent, couple changes of clothes, food, a lot of food, water. And I went to a bike shop and said, I want to bike across the country. I've never done this. How do I do it? And so I did some practice rides. I did 3 practice rides that were like between 30 and 60 miles, and I was ready to go. They say most of the training you do is actually on the trip, which was true. I learned the hard way. My second day, I went up the Cascades, and like it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like harder than med school, harder than any personal struggle. I cried going up because it was so painful. And then I cried going down because I did it. But it was like 96 feet of elevation in like one day. And I was like, it was absolute death.
I'm
Like,
guessing it was
yeah.
9,600, not 96.
Yeah, 9,600 feet of elevation. And so I was alone. No one heard me. And like I would celebrate every mile. I would scream and I was like, I did a mile. Like I would stop and I would like think to myself, like, are you really going to quit now? Like, 'cause, you think about it. And once I went down the mountain, it was all worth it. And I realized, like, if I continue to behave like this the rest of my life, I'm going to go places.
So were you on freeways a lot of the times, or is there a known side street pathway across the
Yeah.
nation, or what does that look like?
I was on main roads most of the time. Montana, I was on interstates. North Dakota, I was on Interstate 94 the whole time. Sometimes there are no shoulders, and I would take a lane of the highway, and people would go past me at 80 miles an hour. In Washington, I went on roads that logging trucks were on, and they would drive by me with like, maybe an inch of space that happened where like one like rubbed against me. And the more you go out east, it gets more dangerous, as crazy as that sounds. Once I hit Ohio, things got really hairy, and I just tried to figure out. I went on the Gap and C&O Trail, which is out east, and I felt safer. But honestly, I felt after you get used to it, you kind of don't really think about it. I mean, I'd have some anxiety if I took a day off, and then I biked the next day. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to deal with this again. But overall, like, no way the negatives. Yeah, I could have died, but whatever.
And what's you get to the end, where did you end up on the East Coast?
Yorktown, Virginia. So yeah, so final leg I went from Pittsburgh, and then I went to Washington, I went to Yorktown. And so my family was there and my in-laws, and it was great, coast to coast. I felt like I could do anything after that.
Is that the biggest takeaway, the sense of accomplishment, or what's some things you realized about yourself, about the world, about life, about middle America? What are some things you took away?
These are my takeaways. When I was in North Dakota, I realized that most people, and this is like really depressing, but anyway, most people live lives of quiet desperation where they just jump through hoop after hoop, and then their next hoop is like the casket. And I like screamed to myself on I-94, I'm not going to be that dude. And that's when I realized, like, I need to do crazy. I want to do more crazy shit, like move to Puerto Rico or like do something else. I realized that. I realized that like a lot of people sell themselves short and like they don't think they can do it. I was in Minnesota, and this one lady was like, yeah, I'd bike. Like I was like at a gas station, because after you hit Fargo, you can hit gas stations every day. So I'd get Doritos and Mellow Yellow every morning because I could eat as much shit as I wanted. This one lady was like, yeah, that's cool, but like I just don't think I could do it. And I'm like, well, like you could. Like a lot of people who do this are in their 70s. And so I realized like that included me. Like I was selling myself short on experiences in life because it was like all that self-talk. We all have it. A lot of us think negative thoughts, and when you're alone and you have all the silence, you realize like, what kind of person would you be if you didn't have those thoughts? Like what kind of person would you be if you just like built yourself up and visualized your success, So those are definitely some things. And I realized like I definitely like I see myself being in medicine for a little bit of time, but I'd like to do other things with my life. And so I would have never thought that if I was around all the noise of like going to work and like making money and like just being distracted. I think a lot of people just work because they want to be distracted from like the real deafening messages that they don't want to face up to. I don't know if that was like what you were looking for, but that's what I got out of the trip. I realized like, I can do anything.